Okay, why don't we start with if it's something that you do, your 2-minute pitch to voters, your concise argument as to why you should be the next mayor.
Yeah, I bring the executive leadership of 33 years of serving the community. I've led thousands of people around the world in much more dire situations than what we have here in San Diego. That's why when I came back, I was amazed at the state of the city. I've been around and seen some major disasters that we were able to clean up in a matter of weeks or months, and this has been going on for decades. So I'm sorry, we just got joined. Is that Scott?
Yeah, hi.
All right.
Okay, Scott, please mute yourself.
So, yeah, I bring a different kind of leadership, hands-on leadership approach to the city. Also, I have the experience of working from the ground level up. I've had real jobs in life. I haven't just always been in politics. I have been a janitor. I have been a gardener. I have been working at a garage station, changing oil and fixing tires, and a deli shop and a hardware store, and joined the Marine Corps. And here I am now as a police officer, the community relations officer for the last 9 years out on the street and working with the elected officials. So, I've had a chance to see how they are doing and how they do it and how they mess things up. And wanted to take what I thought was going to be put to the side for the rest of my life, my managerial experience, and bring it back up to fix our city. I had hoped that some other people had ran. I think most San Diegans have buyer's remorse right now and wish that they had voted for Barbara Brie and not been tricked by all the name calling and trying to paint her as a GOPer in hiding, which she is totally not. I think our city would be in great condition right now, and I wouldn't be running for mayor. I'd just be enjoying my children and my wife on our beaches and in our parks, and not having to see the disaster that's happening on our streets right now. It's the doubling of the humanitarian crisis on our sidewalks and on the sides of our highway, and the number of deaths and the fentanyl on the streets and just everything else with the infrastructure, people drowning from mismanagement of our stormwater system, buying ridiculous real estate, horrible real estate deals, just killing us financially, putting us at the position where some experts are saying we got to consider bankruptcy. I don't want to consider bankruptcy. I want to get us out of this as a grown-up would, looking at our family finances. There's ways to do this. And I know I bring that to the table with the team of experts I have, and those that used to run the city, those that had ran departments in the city under my leadership. We're going to make this happen.
Okay, I'll ask the first few questions and focus on city finances, and then I will defer to my colleagues. When we interviewed you 8 months ago, board members walked away thinking that you didn't necessarily have a kind of a level of familiarity with the intimate budget details and how where the bodies are buried and things are worked. And so I noted a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, you raised the possibility of bankruptcy, and that really caught my eye because I paid very close attention to how bankruptcy has worked out as a municipal strategy around America, including Northern California, and it's very problematic. So now I just heard you say that you don't want to go that route.
Well, I would challenge you, Chris. I would challenge you. Did you listen to the podcast or did you read the Voice of San Diego's summation of it?
I read the Voice of San Diego summation of it. So I
don't think you're going to want to read those anymore if you go listen to that podcast. Hopefully he still has it up and you can hear what I said about it. This is exactly what I said, almost word for word.
Okay.
I said that I had heard from a person who does municipal and large corporation bankruptcies who had told me, I just met him. I didn't go meet with him. He showed up at a meeting we were at. He said, hey, in my professional experience, there's no way the city can get out of this without bankruptcy. And then I went on to say immediately after that, is I don't want to do that. That would be the last resort for our city. I want to find every possible way we can do it I'm going to look at every opportunity. I understand how it works for a municipality where a judge is going to appoint somebody to come through with no emotion, no understanding of our city and make those tough calls for it. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for rejoining us. Sorry about your phone issues.
Yeah, no worries. I moved to the car, so I got a better signal now.
It's okay. We got the gist of your point about bankruptcy, that it was something that you just raised in passing as opposed to being something that was a serious proposal.
It was very upsetting because even the head of the Police Officers Association wrote that he heard me with his own ears say that I was considering bankruptcy. If you listen to the podcast, you would have never heard that with your own ears.
Okay, no problem. We can move on. We don't.
All right, good to go.
I accept your representations about it. Now, you've opposed the city's push for a 1 cent sales tax for an argument that will resonate with many people. If we're not getting good services with our existing taxes, why should we give them more money to spend? Now, I understand that. But the question for many people is this like a philosophical objection to higher taxes? Is there a circumstance under which you could see yourself supporting a 1 cent sales tax? Because the city's obligations, especially on long-term pensions, are not going away, and they're a bear. And nothing's going to change on the revenue front that's likely to limit the unrelenting pressure the city faces to make end meet. So how do you feel about sales tax? Just this one or all ever?
No, not in all ever. No, generally speaking, I don't want to see the city have to raise taxes, and I think most citizens feel that way. You would like to have people able to balance a budget and you know, take care of all our obligated responsibilities as a city, right? However, the things that have hurt us financially to where we're in these dire straits aren't always just because of the pension problem. There's a lot of things with the real estate deals that I mentioned, the wasted money on terrible real estate deals, putting money into programs that don't work, that have seen a doubling of the problem. I mean, whether it's on homelessness or a number of other issues, where hundreds of millions are spent to see a doubling of the problem. So, I think when you get adults in there that don't just want to buy a flashy, shiny new object and actually do their research. I mean, we just saw, for example, and I'll get back to tax in a second, but on the Symphony Tower, it sold for $42 million. Beautiful building, amazing building. They just put $100 and some million into it. So, we're out $340 million, I think it is, for the entire Civic Center Plaza and 101 Ash deal. And when it really gets down to it, it's because of a fear of being deposed when the court case was going to go down. So we hurry up and buy it. So get back to tax now. I don't want to reward a group of people who've given raises, 44% raises to the city's executive team, hired 66% more of them during this time when we should be in, tightening our belt. I don't want to reward them with more money. If we're going to get 450 to 500 million on this 1 cent, they keep calling it, it's a doubling of our sales tax for the city. If we're going to get double that and get about 500 million, that only covers the raises he gave his team. So it's not going to go to anything he's promising. Otherwise, they'd earmark it for that. Also, if they're not afraid of their misuse of it, then they would put a sunset clause on it so we could reevaluate this in 5 years. If both of those were in place, I'd maybe be for it. I mean, I'd have to look at the details of the small print, because that's where they get us here in San Diego, is the small print on these. But if there was an earmark for that, and if it was sunset clause, I would maybe think about it. There are some other revenues, though, that we could grab. We have a lot of specialty accounts right now totaling close to $1 billion that have been set aside. Many of them have $50,000, $90,000, $200,000 in them, totaling about $1 billion. That's going to have to go to a vote of the city council. I think in an emergency state that we're in right now, anybody tells you this isn't an emergency, because they're off flying to China with the pandas, or they're in Nevada and many other places instead of being here during the crisis. They don't know what they're talking about. This is a crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis right now. And I think freeing up those dollars, while that would make the people a little upset who had an account containing 50,000 for the eventual repair of a bathroom at a park, could see that these life and death situations that we're facing in the city right now just far outweigh holding that money in those accounts right now. That is a way to get $1 billion of cash into this system right now to help tackling some of these problems. I will be very transparent. I know you all and the other journalists association, gave the mayor the Wall Award for his lack of transparency.
No, we're not part of that. Please don't. Whatever we feel about his lack of transparency, we are not part of that journalism group. We had no say in that.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. Well, all the other journalists who voted for him to receive the Wall Award for his lack of transparency, not the three of you, of course, that says a lot. And when you were doing backroom deals that don't make sense, there usually is a reason they make sense. Kind of when you put the glasses on and you look at it under the aspect of who's donating money to the campaigns, who makes the money off of this deal. That's really where a lot of the money has gone. And that's why San Diego's suffering now. I don't want to give them more money to spend.
Okay, could you please forward me your information about the $1 billion in accounts? I'd seen vague stuff about that, but nothing specific. Okay, now I punt to you, Laura.
Okay, I want to move on and talk about homelessness, which is a big issue in our city. There has been recent coverage of comments you made in a past interview where you suggested homeless individuals who didn't honor the city's ban on camping should be cited in their first encounter with police. Some critics said that showed a lack of compassion on your part. Others noted the incumbent is among those who have steadily moved toward a stronger position against homeless camps. Can you explain your thinking on the issue?
Yeah, his steady move toward a stronger position on it is because his position never worked. And anybody that wants to question my compassion about the homeless, they can come out and see what I've done every day for the last few years with the homeless and saving lives out there. So when you've had to do the first aid on people overdosing and been stabbed out there, you start to see that we need to save their life. And even if they don't want to choose that direction. So because I'm not going to play this silly game of giving them 4 chances. Every homeless person in San Diego, except for the flow of new people from out of state that the mayor does not recognize, they have all been contacted dozens of times. I can tell you firsthand, there's nobody I've ever contacted. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, maybe 2 out of the thousands that were not contacted before. They know that they're not supposed to have an encampment there. We're playing these games where even when we put this rule into effect, then we had to wait for a sign to go up also. So not only 4 contacts and educating them and writing them infraction tickets and whatnot, we now had to have the city pay for signage that says you cannot camp here. They know they can't camp here. They've been offered countless times an opportunity for a hand up. They don't take it for a number of reasons. And when you go and speak to the people inside the tents, you start to understand why they don't take them. And there's a number of reasons. Everybody out there is an individual with unique things that they need to help with the underlying condition that got them out there. And each one has unique needs with the kind of shelter program that they're looking for. I take that all into consideration when I talk about mine. But to keep the police department in charge of this when this isn't a police issue. This should not be a police issue. But the only organization that he's been able to use so far is a police department that's understaffed. So then that has trickle-down effects with lack of response time to real police matters. This is a social worker, mental health professional type of disaster we have. We do need the police there because there's some violence that occurs out there, and there is some crime that occurs out there. There's a lot of very violent people that hide amongst the homeless and take advantage of them, and they're victims to that every day. So these compassionate people that go out there to drop off water bottles and then try to say that because I want to save their life faster than the mayor does, that I'm somehow not compassionate, and I really take issue with that.
Thank you for that answer. And on the same topic, your supporters include the advocates of the Sunbreak Ranch proposal to local homeless individuals at a large facility miles of where a lot of people gather. This editorial board never met anyone who works closely with the unsheltered population who think homeless individuals would welcome this. Can they be compelled to, and should they be compelled to, in your opinion?
Yeah, I will introduce you to numerous homeless experts who are with the panel of the Sunbreak Ranch. Sunbreak Ranch is not a be-all, end-all solution for this entire crisis. There are plenty of great programs. I think that one works. I think it will work very well. I also think Alpha Project with their campus idea, they've already got the diagrams written for the last 4 years. The mayor would not allow them to put that in place. There are plenty of other organizations that are out there working. It's going to be a team effort. Just getting back to not to dwell on my leadership experience, but overseas in humanitarian crisis overseas, the State Department and USAID, we worked together on a program they called the Cluster Program. A cluster program, I'm going to bring that to San Diego. If you are a nonprofit NGO of any sort and you want to help out in this effort, then we all come to the table together. We have the same definitions of success. We put all our assets on the table and we come up with an efficient, exponentially more helpful program by putting everybody together on this. In the beginning, the city and the government, and same thing on the U.S. State Department side, we had to fill in the gaps between those. And as a Marine, we did that a lot with helicopters and bridge support and fixing roads and security where the warlords would try to steal the medicine and whatnot. But here, luckily, it's easier. However, it's been lasting for decades, and in other countries, it's solved quicker. So getting back to this, Sunbreak Ranch, yeah, great plan. I can't wait to see that executed. When you say miles away from the epicenter of where their drug dealers are, I will just tell you my firsthand experience of when we put people in the convention center. That's not even a mile away. That had an amazing effect on the people who had the claws of addiction in them from allowed them to seek out those resources to get that chemical addiction treatment. Because when you're at, God bless Father Joe's, when you're Father Joe's, though, you look out the window, your dealer is 100 feet away. There's your girlfriend and all their friends, because they only had one bed to offer you. You couldn't go with your whole group. You couldn't go with your whole family, your whole tribe, your encampment can't go together. One bed, you're in there. You got to go out for a walk, and you're smelling burning fentanyl and meth right out there when you go out for a walk. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, what kind of recovery can occur? If you're an alcoholic and you had an apartment above a bar, it's about the same thing. It's going to be very difficult unless you are away from some of that. I realize there's some resources there, but just traditionally and historically, they've been putting it there. We can redirect a lot of that to other places. And we can also, we got modern transportation. We can move people to wherever some of those resources are going to be slow to move to new locations.
Can I just ask one follow-up? You said
Sure.
Sunbreak Ranch would work. Can you just expand on that and say why you think it would work?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Sunbreak Ranch is not as much into the size of it and all that. But what comes down to is there is a large number of people with massive checkbooks, billionaires who I've met in this organization that want to fund this. They want to see some type of program like this. And again, this isn't the only one. You know, it's not Larry Turner is putting all his eggs in the basket of this one program. Not at all. This is one of a dozen type similar organizations. But there's the philanthropic community is ready to drop some huge money on San Diego. I've met with these people. We've had numerous Zoom meetings. They want to see it happen in a city where it can be an example for the rest of the country on how it can work. So, you know, I've heard the city say, well, if they are so compassionate, why aren't they just paying for it now? These are successful business people. That's how they got those billions of dollars. And because of that, they're not going to drop their money into a $250, $280 million facility, which they are planning to do if they have a mayor who will use the facility. This mayor has come out against it time and again. They're not going to build that and offer the operating costs for 3 years if the mayor is not going to go forward with it. They know me. They know I'm going to go forward with this, with getting people transported to those facilities to get those wraparound services, to have that continuum of care that works their way up to eventually having their own apartment and job and savings account and a car. You know, the veterinary care for their pets, large number of beds to where they can go with all their friends. These are good ideas. When it's labeled as a quote unquote concentration camp out in the desert, these are the same people who, as Chris was mentioning earlier, you know, when you read from that organization and don't listen to the podcast or listen to what they're saying, you know, and that's all you get, well, then of course you'd be against it. Who would be for something like that?
But I got to
you got to
jump in
actually
here.
talk to the people.
I have to jump in here because in December we ran an editorial strongly critical of this idea, and we sat back and we waited and we waited and we waited, and we got nobody in this issue who've come forward to support the idea. Nobody. And also,
I disagree, Chris. I support it, and I could tell you dozens and hundreds of others that do.
But
what do you want them to do? Come there to knock on your door, or how should we contact you?
There's an established group of people in this town who have good reputations on homelessness, who are constructive and want to change things. Nobody stepped forward to defend the proposal. And I want to get back to the specific.
I never saw an invitation to step forward, Chris. I mean, I would have stepped forward. I would have loved to.
But do you have credibility on this issue?
Scott Silverman, people who are very well known in this field.
You did not answer the question. Should people be compelled to be part of this? Because if they're not, how can it possibly work?
Yes. Whenever we find people who fall under the category of being under the influence and unable to make a decision on their own, or people who are suffering from mental health issues and can't make a decision on their own, we have law that backs us up on that all the time. Whenever you have somebody who's intoxicated and they're taken advantage of, that is, somebody goes to prison for that because that person can't give consent. Same thing in this case. If they're intoxicated on the side of the road, why should the police officer or the social worker need their consent to take care of them? Same thing with the mental health person who's taking psychotic meds to get them back in. We take, unfortunately, when we have grandparents who suffer from mental health episodes and dementia, and we have to take them to a place they don't want to go. It's the same thing with the mental health side. So I don't know that anybody would disagree with that. If you do, and you think that it's more humane to let a person who's suffering under chemical addiction and with a mental health issue to die on the street, we just have major disagreement. And then, my philosophy of saving lives probably doesn't jive with people like that. But, if it's something about, experts in this field, there are plenty of experts in this field. I would just tell you, Scott Silverman is a huge proponent of this. I think his record kind of goes without question. He's just the first one comes to mind. We've got a lot of them that you probably know of.
Okay, I'm all done. Thank you. Thanks for your response. On to you, Tanya.
Thank you. I want to ask you about Tijuana. What do you think of the shared issues that San Diego and Tijuana have right now? And how would you handle your relationship with Tijuana's local government?
Yeah, we're going to have to make do with what we have, right? We're not going to be able to go in there, and I can't run for mayor TJ, nor would I want to. I mean, they've got to pick the right leadership there. Of course, there's dangerous issues on the other side of the border that we got to speak up about. But in an effort not just to tell TJ what to do, but to empower the businesses and the people that work between our cities. I love that the binational city situation we have is so unique. There's other places along the border in Texas and whatnot, but it's more of an adversarial relationship among those two cities. Here, it's family. I mean, and even with my own family, my wife's family coming from across the border and being here, we go across all the time to visit family. But I see people coming here to work and living across the way, people of Mexican descent with Mexican citizenship, and even Americans, who find it cheaper and more fun to live across the border and work here, even though they're U.S. citizens. So I want to empower that in any way we can. Obviously, we can make recommendations to them on things that would help them, and if there's anything we could do to make it better for them over there, we will consider those things. But it's in no way, our job to enforce any of that. But I would like, at least on the business side and definitely on the cultural side, to expand on what we've already been doing.
Specifically on the sewage situation on Imperial Beach in the South Bay, what would you handle there? Or what would be your recommendation to handle better?
Yeah, I would just say the only power that the mayor has on that one is to be vocal about it and to reach out. This is totally a federal issue, right? It's with the State Department, it's the Department of Defense. There's so many other organizations that far supersede the issues of San Diego in this. But we're the ones having to live with it, right? I mean, the air quality down in Imperial Beach, I know it's not part of San Diego, but, we all go to the same beaches. We go to the State Beach on the Silver Strand. We go to Coronado, but it's working its way all the way up into San Diego beaches. I want to be out surfing with my little kids. I don't want to have to deal with that. I also don't want to see people get sick. I mean, it's more than just the having fun on the beach. It's the amount of pollution that if we just put a little more emphasis on today's environment and not just the climate change and how that's going to affect us decades to come. And we look at the clean river, we look at the sewage problem. In this one, it is across the border, and that's, we have helped on numerous occasions. I'll read reports from both sides saying, well, it's more of a U.S. problem. It's more of a Mexican. It's definitely our problem to live with, but it's the president and his organizations under Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State to really work out this deal. I think that when you have a politician who is a professional politician wanting to ascend in the political world, they can't be calling out people of their party who are the ones that offer them cabinet positions and whatnot. They just can't do that. So you haven't heard a whole lot of yelling about this from our city's mayor. When I'm mayor, I'll work with everybody. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. We're gonna work with you. But if you're doing bad things for San Diego, you're gonna hear from it. And as the 8th largest city, the one thing I think I can do is I can get that bully pulpit. I can get CNN and Fox and MSNBC over here to hear from us and the like-minded mayors, the county board of supervisors, and those that point out, do stories on what's happening here. They do some cursory little checks on it, but it can become a very huge pollution crisis here that can get national attention and put some pressure on them to show some love on San Diego. I mean, my God, we're paying the taxes to where we should be able to get a little bit more love from the federal government on this issue.
Thank you. Other supporters of yours have waged on social media campaigns that suggest that Pod Gloria is not just a weak mayor, but is corrupt and working to give wealthy local interest what they want. Do you agree with this, or do you think that Gloria is corrupt?
Yeah, I think at a minimum there's malfeasance, and I think we're going to do investigations into a lot of these issues when I win, and going to uncover, make it available to everybody to see where their money's gone, and actually have somebody who's transparent to the people, someone who is not just going to win the window award, but they're going to have a new award of transparency for me. And I'm going to let them know what's been happening to San Diego for a long time. I see where anybody could take that leap to corruption on this when you see things like the free sports arena that was offered, and then being Jack McGrory being told, no, we're going to go in a different direction, to the person who gave $100,000 donation to the mayor's campaign. When you see that when the lawsuits were starting to come forward on us trying to break the lease on 101 Ash, and the mayor and his friends were about to be deposed and have their emails submitted, that then there's a purchase agreement, even though Mara Elliott disagreed with it. Someone from his own party, a former friend, the city attorney is somebody you're supposed to seek guidance from on such issues. He went against her guidance to purchase it. And we've seen that statue of stupidity in the downtown area ever since, with no plan to get rid of it. So, yeah, I think that it's very easy for people to think that this is in the corruption area. I think that at a minimum, it's malfeasance.
Is there any council member that you agree with more than others? Who is it and why?
I'd say I agree with several of them. I'd say the more with Vivian Moreno, big fan of hers. I think that she has the moxie. She is a tough woman who stands up to the mayor when needed. I might disagree with her on a few policy issues here and there. None come to mind right now, but demanding some fair treatment for the quote unquote underprivileged neighborhoods. I think it's a sin that we have neighborhoods we call underprivileged. There's a serious lack of equity in the city, and for her to stand up for that, I remember Monica Montgomery Stepp was the same way. I think Henry Foster is I haven't had a chance to get to know him as well, but I do like him. I like the way he's going on some of this. I think Raul is a good person with his heart in the right place, and I'm a fan of some of the things he's done, even though he's pushing for this 1 cent sales tax, they're calling it. I think that was more of a fact because he had nobody running against him this time, so the mayor thought he would probably be the best person to introduce it, since it's a losing effort.
Thank you.
One of the appeals of newcomer candidates and outsider candidates is that they step forward and they say, it's that simple. Here's how we fix this, and here's how we fix that. And I appreciate that as a political strategy, and it makes sense, and it certainly paid off for a lot of people over the years. But there's also the issue of being mugged by reality. Has there been any issue that you've looked at since you got into this a year ago, and you think, wow, that's way more complicated than I first thought, and maybe I should not pretend that the answers are so cut and dried? Because politics is a serious business. For all the concerns about people who are corrupt or malfeasance, there's lots of people get into politics because they want to do the right thing, and they find it hard to figure out what works. So are there any issues where you look back at your old views and think, man, I really didn't grasp how complicated this is?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd go that far. I'd say I understand the seriousness of a lot of this. I've worked very close at the national level in government and seen that mess. And I guess the lens that I put on when I look at the city is just how much less entangled and complicated this is than at the federal level. You will not see me running for a national office ever. I don't believe that that is a tough knot to untie. Here at this level, it is much easier, not easier than the things I've worked with before in the national security apparatus and the intelligence agencies with getting funding for things and for setting priorities and whatnot. Here with the strong mayor form of government, I think it is a lot easier than people imagine to get a lot of this done. What the problem is the setting of priorities. I believe that that's where past mayors have maybe found it difficult to lead. In this situation, I am looking at the core functions of what a city government is all about, and really all government, county, state, federal, the safety of our citizens, and then secondly, the infrastructure. I throw in there homelessness too, because there are citizens too. They're San Diegans that are on the street and they're not safe. So safety and infrastructure is really what it comes down to. So I always talk about HIP, homelessness, infrastructure, and public safety. When you put everything in that priority and then prioritize under that, there's going to be some things that when we're tightening our belt here to get things in order, we're going to have to say no to some things that aren't quote unquote necessities. They are the nice to haves many times. You do find people that are very upset about that and very vocal. And I think that many politicians who are weaker will give into that. And well, okay, we don't want that neighborhood to scream as much about it, so we'll give them this little nugget or that little nugget. And at the expense of the basic things that keep a city alive and functioning. So if I'm going to keep businesses from flowing out of this city, and I'm going to bring businesses from up north to flow down here, I have to have an infrastructure to support that. I got to have homeless people off the street and saving their lives and not dying in front of restaurants. And I've got to have it safe to where people want to live in San Diego and not be afraid to walk their dogs after dark and let their kids play in a playground. It really gets down to the basics of just when you do that and you're not really worried about a re-election campaign or going to be something after mayor, you can make those tough decisions. And I'm being very honest with everybody about it. If you like the direction it's going, I am not your candidate then. That's just the way it is. I don't want to be your mayor if you don't want the change. This is change. This is how I'm going to do it. It's a different way of looking at it. We already meet very regularly with my team of former high-level city employees and managers to look at how we're going to restructure a lot of this and how we're going to build efficiencies in our city government, and even at the lowest level of being able to hear from everybody. Time and again, as a community relations officer, I hear from people. The mayor does not reply to our emails, or they just give us a link to his webpage, and our answers are never received. The police department is not answering the phone in a reasonable amount of time. How do you run a city if you don't have your finger on that pulse? And I come from the intelligence field, and more often than not, I find that there's great benefit from being in that field. That intelligence flow of information to the commander to help him make those actionable decisions based on that information, you have to have that. So we're going to be correcting a lot of that stuff. Is it going to be easy? No, but it is not a hard plan. It is going to be difficult to implement it because of it's just a sea change of a way of looking at this problem. And again, it's those top three issues right there: homelessness, infrastructure, and public safety. When we focus on that, we will make huge inroads on those. On other areas, there is going to have to be some sacrifice sometimes.
If the rest of the board doesn't have questions, I'd like to pursue an angle that has to do with politics in the city and the idea that one party is to blame. I know you're running as an independent, and I know that you've got independent voters and Democrat voters who back you up. However, there's a large chunk of your backers who believe that everything is screwed up in San Diego because of Democratic single-party rule. Well, the fact is that that's just not true. Dick Murphy was a bad mayor. Jerry Sanders and Jan Goldsmith approved the 2012 pension deal that blew up spectacularly. And of course, Kevin Faulconer oversaw all these insane real estate deals. So when you look back at the history of San Diego, how do you view the apportioning of blame among the parties? Or is that just not the way to frame it? Because it just seems to me that there's many people in your camp who just want to say it's all on those darn Democrats.
Yeah, I got a lot of people in my camp, bro. I mean, it's a huge tent. We got support across the spectrum. So you're going to hear some supporters of mine probably say some things here and there, many things here and there that I don't necessarily agree with, but they agree with those core principles I want to fight on to get the city fixed. So your question about is it one party's fault? No, not at all. I think when you hear it more on the Democrat side, it's probably just because of more Democrats in office. And right now, it is all Democrats on there, so you're hearing it more about Democrats. But sure enough, you mentioned some Republicans along there. I'm not a anti-party person per se. It's that the party apparatus seems to push people on us that weren't necessarily qualified for these positions in many cases. So yeah, mistakes are made by both. I've voted across the board on libertarian and other non-binary choice positions for elections my whole life. So it's I don't think it's one side or the other. I just really don't like the binary choice we're given because then it's fighting the two sides against each other. I think that's what I bring together is a team of all San Diegans. I see my yard signs next to Harris signs, and I see my yard sign next to Trump signs, and I don't know when that's ever occurred before that you see a candidate who is appreciated by everybody on the extremes. I mean, so I don't agree that it's just all the Democrats or that it was all the Republicans. And I hate to come to the defense of somebody, but I keep hearing that Faulconer was one who oversaw the 101 Ash deal, and I disagree with you on that. I mean, he oversaw the lease of it, and then it went into that next phase where it grew, and the cancer became much worse when we purchased it under a terrible situation. I just think that, even a broken clock, is right twice a day. And we haven't had much right going on. I'm having a hard time finding anything that's gone better at all in these last 4 years. So, I would love for people to email me that if they have it. And I'm betting it has something to do with some doctored up statistics.
The Faulconer administration said that a power wash was all that was needed to inhabit 101 Ash Street. How can you possibly give any cover to him on that?
Oh, that sounds stupid. It does, right? Here's my coverage. What did he buy the building? He did not buy the building.
He set the actions in motion.
Oh, no, not really. He set a lease in motion. and he did the lease. So again, I'm not trying to defend Faulkner. I just saying, Chris, you're not accurate. So Todd Gloria pushed the agenda item through as the president of the council. The mayor made a horrible decision in going forward with that lease. Yes. And then when he wasn't mayor anymore and Todd Gloria was mayor, Todd Gloria paid double to purchase this worthless building after knowing at that point it didn't need a pressure wash. It was a worthless building and he still bought it. So, I'm not giving coverage to the mayor for leasing it. I'm telling you that Todd Gloria owns this. At least 90% of it is his. So
do you
I was
dispute that he
Todd Gloria on this.
Do you dispute the idea that the proposal originated with the Faulkner administration to lease the building?
100%. Yes, I said that. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. So Todd Gloria was the president of the council when he pushed it forward, and Faulkner incorrectly said that it needed a pressure wash and incorrectly leased that building. Should not have leased it. All I'm saying is there's more to the story. You're stopping in chapter 1.
Well, but no, specifically, whose idea was it in the first place?
I'm sorry, what?
Whose idea was it in the first place?
I think Todd and Faulkner. Do you disagree?
With all the history of this, we have excellent reporters who covered this issue. This issue came from the Faulkner administration.
I would just ask you, who bought the building?
There's no question that there's massive blame to go around about this, but
there's plenty of blame for Todd on this, and there's some for other people. At Chris, I mean, really, we paid double the amount for a building that's totally worthless right now because of the mayor.
And we've been massively critical of it. Sure. I got to jump in here. Please let me get a point in here. Of course, we've been super critical of the mayor for his handling of this. But do you actually say that this idea did not originate with Mayor Kevin Faulkner?
Again, why don't you, if you play this back, I think every time I tried to answer a question, I said Faulkner was wrong for doing that. I don't know how much more clear I could be.
But you said the idea was his idea and Todd Gloria's, and that's not true. It came from the Faulkner administration.
Okay, I disagree in that the president of the council at that time was Todd Gloria, and he was the one that brought it up for the vote. And all I'm saying is that the lease of it would have ripped off the city for $100 and some million. Now we're on the hook for $200 and some million, and we own it, and that's completely Todd Gloria. So the coverage for Todd on this is what I find kind of disturbing. I don't understand how we're going back to the beginning of this poor trip we went on and not talking about the person who was driving the car when we decided to run it off a cliff.
Because we never would have gotten the car if the mayor had made the proposal in the first place.
Chris. I mean, that's fine. I mean, if that's the way you want to look at it. But I think when an adult takes over the wheel, they should probably stop that car, turn it around. And he had that chance to do it. We're in debt twice as much as we would have been under Faulkner's decision. Faulkner made a huge mistake. I've said that, I think, 7 times now. I think it should have never been leased. I get that. Now we're talking about the purchasing of it, which, because the direction was going that way, we had to purchase it. Mara Elliott said, hey, guys, I think we can win this case. And out of nowhere, when depositions were going to be requested of the politicians who had those closed-door conversations, then we bought it for twice as much. That's, I hope you've covered that. That's the way I understand it to be, and I think I'm right.
Okay, one question I will kind of take on a tangent, and then I will punt to Tanya and Laura for whatever they want to ask. The mayor, as the biggest head, the leader of the largest government in San Diego, holds the most power on Sandag, and yet the mayor has seemed reluctant to use the bully pulpit to try to force Sandag to do things, whether to change management or to change plans. I mean, he did get involved on the driving for mileage proposal a bit. But by and large, he has not been into the whole idea that San Diego should use its clout. How would you be different if you were mayor trying to get Sandag to follow your agenda?
Yeah, I think it's, obviously it's a county-wide organization that we need to take the entire county into consideration. So even though we do have more power than the other mayors, I will be able to sway it. And we do have to take in consideration, the La Mesas and the El Cajones and everybody out there and how we're going to come up with plans that work for all of us in an efficient way. Because obviously, many people who work in San Diego live in one of the other cities and they're transporting in and out of San Diego and vice versa, believe it or not. I see so many people who are working out of the city but live in the city. That said, it does need to go in a different direction. And if things are harming San Diego, which they are, to say, well, Sandag made us do it on some issues. I've heard that a few times with some spending we had to do on bike lanes. Well, this money was earmarked by Sandag that we have to do this. I don't think anything's coming out of Sandag that the mayor didn't want to come out of Sandag. And he's opposing the mileage tax. And I'll just give him the benefit of the doubt and believe him on that. But it's also very unpopular issue with almost everybody in San Diego. So, it is a very safe position to take on that one to go against San Diego. But I do want to take it in another direction. Not me, but I want to see some new leadership in there. I want to see something that makes sense for the San Diego today. That also dovetails into the San Diego of 30, 40, 50 years from now when we talk about transportation and other issues. But we can't just, harm us today just for this goal of the future. We got to be able to do both. And so, yeah, I do plan to use the city's power to make sure SANDAG is doing the things that are good for the people of San Diego, but also wearing my hat also of a resident of this great county. I mean, I want to see it. I want to see it work for everybody.
Okay, I punt to Laura and Tanya. I've
Just
got
one more question from me. Are there one or two issues that you can think of that you feel are not getting the attention they should be getting?
Besides those top three that I mentioned, I mean, I don't think that they do, but I'll just tell you one thing in particular, and it's just with human beings. We're so numb to a lot of this stuff that's happening on the homeless side, and I get that. There's psychologically, there's doctors will tell you that we just can't take a certain amount of stress before we callous over it and numb to it, and I get that San Diego is that way, but to see a mayor and a city pushing people across invisible lines in the city so you can make up a statistic that says you've improved the lives of people and you've reduced the number of homelessness, that just gets to a sick level. And I don't think that gets covered. I have taken press out to points in the city where there's the line between Caltrans and the city of San Diego, and you see huge encampments on the other side where there weren't previously. And before a homeless count occurs, there's a big sweep and it pushes people into those areas. And now they're even in a more precarious, dangerous situation being on the side of the highway than they were being on the city street. I want them somewhere where they're going to get the help and the care and the compassion they need. But to push them across a line so they don't count as San Diego, that's something I wish people would cover more. I wish that got the attention, because I think that would make a lot of people sick, even though they've grown numb to this problem. I think that would make a lot of people very upset with the decision makers who use that as a tool when it comes close to election time.
Thank you.
Okay, if we have no other questions from the board, we'll ask you to provide a kind of like a 60-second summary, maybe not hit on the same points as you did at the start, but what are some of the reasons you think that are most compelling as to why you're the better candidate for mayor?
Yeah, I just bring a total different outlook on leadership to this. I do it down at the lowest levels. I'm out in the streets talking to the people. When I'm mayor, you're going to see me out in the patrol cars. You're going to see me down in the sewers with the workers. In the park with the park rangers. That's the only way to really understand the people. It's also hearing from you at your committee meetings and at your board meetings, at your planning groups. That's where the best ideas come from. I look at things completely different in that the best ideas are coming from the ground up. You all know your neighborhoods better than I ever will. I know my neighborhood pretty good in OB, but you all know your neighborhoods better. When I become mayor, I don't just all of a sudden inherit an IQ level to where I'm going to know that the decisions that need to be made in your area better than you. You will see a relationship with your planning groups and with all of your different association, business association, religious groups, where I am the one present. And if I'm not there, it's one of my senior representatives. It's not just a young staffer who's there to take notes and can't answer your questions. I work for you. I am your employee. This is a chance for you to have someone working for you. Yeah, it's Larry Turner. It's this face. I am you. I am going to be representing you. And I have no ambitions after this. I never even wanted this job. I'm in this job because there's a intelligence vacuum going on at City Hall right now that's driving our city off a cliff. I'm volunteering to kick that driver out and take over the bus and turn it around for you. And then I'm done. I just want to raise my kids in the city safe. And I'm going to see you for the next rest of my life. Hopefully that's 50 years. You'll see me at the Aztec games and at the beach. And you can tell me, if I did a good job or not. I'm not running off to Sacramento or DC off of your backs. I'm a San Diegan, and I have been fighting for you, literally fighting for you. I've run into the burning buildings. I've pulled people from jumping off the bridge. I have been out there for you all around the world, serving you, even when you didn't know it. I've been in the shadows, protecting you for my entire life. I'm someone you can trust. If you called 911 and you had to choose between me and the current mayor, who you'd want, I guarantee you, I'm the person who you would want to come help you out of your situation. And that's what we need in the city right now, is the person who really puts the city first and puts himself far behind the city.
Thank you very much. I also want to thank you, Scott, for all your help in setting things up and all the information you provide. We appreciate it. And we'll be in touch about when we plan to post this video online. But thank you very much.
Hey, Chris, you asked me to submit something to you, and I forgot what it was. You asked me to email
About
you
the $1 billion in unencumbered funds that you
Oh,
believe
yes,
the
yes.
council can claim on an emergency
Gotcha.
basis. That's an interesting angle that I don't think's got a lot of attention.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn of it, and it was only because I have someone who used to run the fiscal department on my team, and she pointed that out to me and showed me the document. So I'll ask her to send it to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
See
you,
y'all.
Chris. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Tanya, very much.
Thank you.